is going to be prime versus composite numbers. So we have been talking about this in class, but if you need some extra support or just need a little refresher, this is the video for you. So let's take a look here on the left-hand side where you see prime versus composite numbers. So we have been practicing, and we know that a prime number has only two factors, right? So it only has two factors. It's going to be 1 and then itself. So for example, if I have the number 2, right? Let's write this up here, the number 2. 2 is prime because the only factors of 2 are 1 times 2, or 2 times 1, right? 3 is a prime number because the only factors of 3 are 1 times 3, or 3 times 1, right? 5 is a prime number because the only factors, the only thing that multiplies to get 5 would be 5 times 1, or 1 times 5. 7 is also a prime number because the only thing that we can multiply together to get 7 would be 7 times 1. 11 is also a prime number because there's nothing that you can multiply to get 11 except for 11 times 1, or 1 times 11. And there's many, many more prime numbers than that. Let's try and think of some more prime numbers. We have 13 that's prime. We have 19 that's prime. Because think about the number 19. Is there anything that you can multiply? Think of all of the numbers, all of your families. What times what gives you 19? The only thing is 1 times 19. Over next door, we also have composite numbers. So composite numbers are numbers that have more than 2 factors. So for example, 4. We know that 1 times 4 is 4, or 4 times 1. And we also know that 2 times 2, I could just put a little hump there to show that I'm multiplying 2 times 2. So really, the number 4 has 3 factors, 1, 2, and 4, right? If I'm looking at the number 6, let's erase this, the number 6. I know that I can do 6 times 1 to get 6. I know that I can do 2 times 3 to get 6. And I think that's it. So when I go to list my factors, I start with my smallest number, go to my largest number. 1 times 6 is 6, and 2 times 3 is 6. So 6 has 1, 2, 3, 4 factors, right? So a composite number just has to have more than 2 factors, right? And there's other examples there. 8 is a composite number. Well, we multiply 8 times 1 and 4 times 2. Right? So that's 4 factors. 9 is a composite number because we can multiply 1 times 9 and 3 times 3, right? So it has a total of 3 factors. 12 is a composite number. Why is 12 a composite number? Because we know that 12 has 12 times 1 is a factor pair, 6 times 2 is a factor pair, and 4 times 3 is a factor pair. So when I go to list these, I would do 1 and 2 factors, right? So it doesn't necessarily matter if the number has 6 factors or 4 factors or 12 factors, right? As long as it has more than 2 factors, it's considered a composite number, okay? Now, 0 and 1 are considered neither prime or composite because 0 is not a counting number. What do I mean by that? Well, when you're counting things, so let's say, for instance, I'm counting how many magnets I have in my hand. I'm not going to say, okay, let's start. Like if I was in, kindergarten, I'm like, okay, let's start counting. We don't say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We don't start with 0. We always start with the number 1. So I would just say 1, 2, 3, 4. So because 0 is not a counting number, we don't use either prime or composite for it. Now, the reason that 1 is neither prime or composite is because 1 only has 1 factor. Think about this. What do you multiply together to get the number 1? The only thing that you can multiply together to get the number 1 would be 1 times 1. So you might be saying, well, Mrs. Rossi, wouldn't that be prime then because there's 2 numbers there? Nope, because watch, when you go to list the factor pairs of 1, remember, we don't list any number twice, so we would only list the number 1 once, showing that it only has 1 factor. So 1 is considered neither. Okay, so let's take a look at this practice. At the top, feel free to pause this video and read over those factors, prime numbers, and composite numbers. However, I'm going to skip right down to the bottom. So feel free to pause, read over those, but that is for you, okay? It says list all of the factors for the number 4. So let's go through and list the factors for 4. Well, we know that we have 1 times 4, and we have 2 times 2. So when I'm listing these, I'm going to write 1, 2, 4, because 1 times 4 is 4 and 2 times 2 is 4. Remember, we don't list 2 twice when we're listing. So it has 3 total factors. So is 4 a prime number or a composite number? It's going to be a composite number. So you can just write C, or you can write out the word composite. Why is it composite? Because it has more than 2 factors, right? It actually has 3 factors, okay? All right, let's look at letter B. List all of the factors for the number 11. So let's think, what do I multiply together to get me 11? So 11 times 1. Is there anything else? 11 has exactly 2 factors, 1 in itself. So would 11 be prime or composite? It's going to be prime because it only has 2 factors, 1 times itself. All right, I want you now to try letters C and D on your own. So please pause this video, go ahead and try C and D on your own. All right, it's time to go over letters C and D. You should have paused, tried them on your own, and now we are going to go over them. So 16, if I'm listing factor pairs for 16, I know I have 16 times 1, and I have 4 times 4, and I have 8 times 2. Now, if I wanted to list these, I would list these using least to greatest. So 1 times 16 is 16, 2 times 8 is 16, and then 4 times 4 is 16. And remember, I'm not going to list 4 twice. I only need to list it once. So we have multiple factors here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factors here. So would 16 be prime or composite? It would be composite because it has more than 2 factors. And then for the last one, 23, you should have found that 23 is a prime number because it only has 2 factors. It's only 1 and 23. There's nothing else that you can multiply together to get 23 except for 1 times 23. So that would be a prime number. Make sure that you guys are practicing and going back to this video if you forget what a prime or composite number is. And make sure that when you list your factors, you are listing them from least to greatest. And if you have a double number like 2 times 2, 6 times 6, 4 times 4, you're only listing it once in your list of factors.